Yo. We're watching The Right Opinion, Frenemies, Trisha Paytas, and Ethan Klein. So I used to be a fan of H3H3. You know, H3 used to be loved by the internet. The internet absolutely had Ethan's back, and during his lawsuit, all that, and then they launched the podcast. I was on it, the podcast. I liked it for a bit, and then eventually it just got stale, and I just dropped off the face of the earth when it came to the podcast. And then I heard they launched Frenemies with Trisha Paytas, and I was like, bro, don't these two hate each other? And they did, or they do. I don't know. But then they launched a podcast called Frenemies. It lasted a while, maybe like a couple months. I'm not too sure. But this is a total breakdown of Ethan Klein and Trisha Paytas, Frenemies, beginning, ending, conclusion by The Right Opinion. Now, it's a 4-hour video. I'm not going to watch the whole thing. If you want to check out the whole video, link description down below. The only stuff I care about is Frenemies. How good was it, or how bad was it, and why did they break up? Because eventually they broke up, and what happened afterwards. So I'm not going to be watching this whole thing, just some of it. But yeah, let's get into it. Frenemies. Edited by Mangerubis.
In a way, Frenemies was a concept that was constructed off Trisha and Ethan's established rapport. The fact that on one hand they'd had friendly conversations, they'd had productive discourse on certain matters, but they'd also had their fair share of drama and fallings out after they had seemingly reconciled. The question on many people's...
Golly.
They also had their fair share of...
Top left, you can't see because I'm in the way. You think I give a single... He uses my, quote, ugly pics versus, quote, pretty F off. Yesterday, I posted a thumbnail of all my nasty skin breakouts on my vlog channel. It's the amount of abuse young girls will put on themselves after having watched that.
Drama.
Hey, H3H3 Productions, you're a disgusting piece of sh**. Your recent video is not only predatory, it's also harmful to young girls. I'm not mad he posted ugly pics of me. My thumbnail say blah, 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 blah. Calling girls who are thin manatees. Wait, what? In fact, he just ripped apart every female. Calling girls who are thin manatees. I know people who have literally took their own lives over bullying like this. Trisha, stop crying.
Fallings out after they had seemingly reconciled. The question on many people's minds was, how do you keep a podcast going with two people who may hate each other on a certain day, who may not talk for months?
I want to know how
money
and
maybe,
why.
but even then, if you're not really committed to something, it tends
You're not
to
gonna
show.
do it. Yep.
Well, I mean, they come from a conservative family.
Trisha's new boyfriend is Gila's brother. What? Excuse me? What?
If you knew their dad is his,
he didn't like you. I knew that.
Yeah, he didn't like me. He thought I was crazy. I mean, imagine what they would
think
like,
about.
And you're like
you.
way crazier than I am.
Am I though? Because
yes, absolutely. I will answer that for Ethan. Yes, you are crazier than Ethan. Well, Ethan in this version of Ethan. I don't know about Ethan now. I don't know. He looks terrible. I don't know what he's doing. I hope he gets healthy. I don't know. But now, in this shot, absolutely, Trisha, you are way crazier than Ethan. 100%.
I think so, yeah.
100%. 100%.
Interesting. Wow.
Still looking fine though, boo.
However, from the first episode, there clearly was a commitment involved. They even had their own personalized set to contrast between the two creators. Ethan on that brooding dark side, and Trisha with their pink-spirited jollity. I mean, to be honest, that's not an accurate representation of their style, but I suppose that is the sort of energy they tend to emanate, at least. In the introduction, Ethan emphasized that these two were drawn together for that unique chemistry, seemingly debunking the idea that this was a tactical decision on his part. There was acknowledgement that this could go pear-shaped very quickly, but both seemed to have an understanding of the potential outcomes, intrepidly embracing them. And from the first minute of the first episode, that quirky chemistry that everyone seemed to identify was on exhibit.
And how big is it? Beyond
Trisha's obsession with Jewish people. Bro, Trisha,
fine. It's fine.
Less than 5.
No.
4.
Wait, what?
No, it's bigger than 4
and
5.
Oh, his.
Do you measure?
Oh, his. I thought she was talking about like how big is his gut. She talking about how big is his duck. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Whenever you type something in text message, you say dick. It puts duck. Like the video.
Sure.
I have when I was younger. I haven't measured it recently.
How many people have you had sex with in your life?
Damn.
10.
Actually?
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine. 10.
How about you? Of 10 billion?
Okay, Ethan. Okay. Oh, okay.
10.
Actually?
Yeah. How about you? Of 10 billion?
In a way, though, this time it was intended. It's not like Trisha didn't mean what they had said in the past. It meant that this environment was actively fostered in acknowledgement of its subsequent public release. A Frenemies episodes is basically a compilation of the conversations you have with your friend. In all honesty, you'd be afraid to ever provide a public platform. But Trisha was that friend who already had the platform, so in a way, people almost felt more permitting, because it wasn't like they had much to gain from it. In return, Ethan had organically found an aspect for his podcast that he had been desperately missing in the past, that raw chemistry.
I mean, I don't want to be chiseled. I just don't want to be like this. I don't have tits.
Right. I don't think you do. I think you're shirtless over there. He was changing shirtless.
I was covering my body.
No,
But
weren't.
thank you.
But
I
you're
appreciate
on
that.
TikTok showing it. You don't seem self-conscious about your body.
No, I'm not.
I'm not either.
good.
Isn't that funny how like chubby people just don't care? We're just like, whatever.
I mean, I don't think that's all chubby people. But
Yeah,
I
I'm about to
I
say,
think we just have. Can I ask you some
I
questions?
think it's
He'd finally shown his critics that he could actually do something that many doubted he could. I think the problem with his previous interviews
Get
was
along.
that Ethan and Hila aren't the best at starting conversation. And when dealing with more stoic guests, this tended to lead to some awkward interactions.
Wait. William Osman was screwed over on the podcast H3H3 and the worst Bill Burr podcast ever, WTF, by Corrupted Nation.
Trisha was probably the most world-curious guest they had, and Trisha always provided Ethan with at least 10 zany comments to find one response to, which Ethan could always do. The highs yielded quality banter, excellent repartee, and chemistry for the ages. However, with the sunshine came the rain.
You guys were already kind of annoying me this weekend, and I'm like, honestly,
Why?
I either break up with you guys or snap on you guys. One of the two will come eventually, but so far, so good.
Oh, well, hold on.
Bro, she says all that with a smile.
Surprisingly, the first
Dude.
4 episodes went without major incident.
crazy.
However, the 5th, billed as a Halloween special, is where the greasy wheels appear to detach from the ramshackle machine. Trisha has a habit of going nuclear rather quickly, and I'll discuss why in a moment. But whenever they feel slightly attacked, they seem to fight back with 1,000 times the ferocity of that which was initially launched on them. In this case, during a discussion on transparency, Trisha brings up the subject of Ethan's substance abuse to prove that he's not as open as he claims.
She's that one friend. You two are roasting each other, and you're like, "Yeah, that's why you fat." And then she said, "Yeah, that's why your dad left your mom. Yeah, that's why you get beat every day by your mama. Yeah, she takes it out on you, don't she?" It's like she goes for the kill.
Ethan, feeling blindsided by this comment, accuses Trisha of weaponizing his problems against him. This strikes a nerve with Trisha, and it quickly goes downhill from there.
You overestimate your influence.
Trisha and Ethan have a huge fight, and she storms out. Frenemies number 5. Bro, that title, bro.
Oh, I know how you guys are with him. Oh my God, Trisha did this. Oh my God, Trisha did that. Are we should be scared of Trisha? It's like,
I've never said anything like that to him.
I seen your group chats. I literally see his phone.
Well, you bragging about looking through his phone isn't exactly the best look.
I'm not bragging about it. I'm stating something because once again, I'm
Well,
open.
well, I've never said anything like that. I'm trying to resolve this because
The more we talk about it, the worse it's gonna be. Like, good luck. Honestly, good luck. Thanks for having me on 5 episodes. Love it. It was so much fun. And
Dude, she's going for the fuck,
I'm
Trisha.
over it.
Okay.
Good luck.
Bro, dude, Trisha, oh my God. I could not have a girlfriend like that.
And I'm sorry about your family situation. I'm sorry about your situation.
no,
I know you're miserable.
No, it's
You
not
are.
true.
I can tell. I can
Don't-
tell. And it's sadness. And I
don't
see you when I was
do
around
that.
your family that you have sadness in you, and it's sad.
Okay.
And that's why you're so mean to people on the internet. And I get it, but also don't take it out on people and call them crazy and shit.
She's
Well,
gaslighting.
we're going
him.
out on a high note here, folks. All for your viewing pleasure.
Just wire me for this later, and we'll talk never. Because I
Oh my God, she's crazy. She's like, I'm not crazy like she's actually cuckoo, but like she's like, you don't say that. Oh my God.
hate people just like that are you. You're the person I hate in this world.
Really?
That's so I hate people just like that are you. You're the person I hate in this world.
Really?
That's so just offensive, and but they do nothing wrong. And when people are provoked, oh, they're crazy, calling girls crazy and stuff like that. It's like but taking no accountability, no responsibility. You think everything's just an attack against you. Everyone's against Ethan. Like, oh my gosh, I'm always right. It's like, ugh, you and Jax films serve each other. So
Jax? Well, I can't
Jax
believe you're going
Films.
after Jax. He's such a sweet guy.
I love you.
All right, Trisha.
Bye. Thanks for the great episode.
It's quite a sight to behold, Ethan perched there in his Uncle Fester costume.
The whole time, man, is just dressed up as Uncle Fester, and this is happening. Oh my goodness.
Visuals aside, this did spawn a situation that clearly troubled those involved. For some, this would be drama, this would be funny. But for the podcast, this was the surfacing of a problem that has been present with Trisha for years. And it definitely brought into question whether this dynamic was healthy.
I'm going to try to do a post-mortem on this. I don't know. Maybe she's just having a bad day.
I haven't spoken about it too much yet, and I don't want to speak about it too much in general, but Trisha has been quite open about their struggles with borderline personality disorder, a condition that alongside other symptoms can cause intense emotional instability and impulsivity in individuals affected by it. This has obviously been demonstrated in certain scenes of the podcast, and when you see Trisha storm off, some would draw that what you're actually witnessing is an episode of BPD, and question whether it's actually ethical that we're even witnessing what's going on.
Is it ethical that we're watching this happen? I don't really think ethics have anything to do with it. They're two grown adults. They had a contract saying we're going to do a podcast. They do a podcast, and then, one of them has a meltdown. Even if it was Ethan, if they had a meltdown, okay, well, one of them had a meltdown, the other one didn't. Is it all right to upload this? As long as the other person's getting paid, I guess it wouldn't matter to them personally. I mean, Trisha has her own channel and stuff like that. So she uploads a lot of crazy stuff on her channel. Ethan uploaded crazy stuff on his. I mean, ethics, I don't think it really matters, but that's just my personal opinion.
Everyone accepted that this time round, these sorts of interactions were a very real possibility, and in an attempt to preserve that raw nature to make sure that we're receiving the full picture, even the ugliest parts are left in. Yet, although that rawness was in itself an appeal for many viewers, it also led some to question whether this was really fair given Trisha's own personality disorders, given that these outbursts were thought to be a symptom of the condition in question. It's a complex discussion because on one hand, you never want to rob an individual of their agency. And let me make it crystal clear. Exactly, Trisha consented to be on the podcast from its inception to its cessation. 100%. However, at the same time, when you're walking around topics that could trigger someone, when you're on a podcast that actively acknowledges that it could become nasty pretty quickly, you also have to make sure you're not just carelessly exploiting that. Although I think anyone would be pressed to say that Ethan...
Yeah, in that situation, I don't think he exploited her. I think he was trying to diffuse it, but he just wasn't saying the right things. And Trisha was pushing, right? I'm not a victim blamer, but she was pushing. He said this. She was like, well, no, this, and that. And then Ethan's like, well, I mean, you just exposed that you looked through other people's phones. That's not a good look. And she's going to respond to that negatively because she's going to try and save face. And by saving face, she wants to throw you under the bus. It's just like a bad snowball, man.
Ethan ever went out of his way to torment Trisha, also doing nothing about that sort of dysfunctional environment could be seen as passively allowing that toxicity to thrive, which although spectacular points doesn't really do much good for you, Trisha, or anyone else who works on the podcast. And the moment that you stop taking those outbursts seriously, then you risk enabling that behavior as well. This was an emergent problem that was going to cause a very imminent demise if something wasn't done about it.
What happened next?
If these were normal podcast episodes, then these disruptions would have likely been the end of Trisha and Ethan's friendship for at least
I love how Ethan's dressed in drag.
Another few months. And at first, it did seem like Trisha was not going to be returning to the podcast. However, given that they had this partnership going, this was something that worked to an extent. I think it gave both parties a greater impetus to try and maintain it. At the same time, doing nothing wasn't the best option either. And in the episode following, the tension between the two was still palpable, with Trisha reluctant to open up to Ethan again after their heated exchange.
I think we're pretty much past it. I think we're past it.
Love it.
Although there was progress throughout the episode, it felt like something more needed to be done to keep this alliance healthy and productive. And by the next show, it seemed like Ethan had found the solution.
Well, I'd stay away from the genetics and back to the brain scans.
You cut that out now.
Caitlyn Jenner's Courage Award. Does she deserve it? Courage Award? There's an award for being courageous? I hope it was given to somebody that goes into like a burning building and saves like 10 babies. That's very courageous.
Or you'll go home in an ambulance.
Allow me to introduce you to this man then. His name is Drew Pinsky, but is more informally known as Dr. Drew. He is a renowned media personality and internist, which Basically means that you specialize in treating a variety of ailments of the body without the need for surgery. Some people use the term physician interchangeably with it, in case you're more familiar with that term. Dr. Drew is recognized for a plethora of programs, most notably Loveline, a phone-in show.
Look, man, I just care about Ethan and Trisha's counseling. There we go. That's what I want to hear about. I don't know about this other guy. I don't care.
Oh, and I've gotten...
Oh my God, these costumes are awesome, bro. That doesn't even look like Trisha. That looks like a light-skinned Chance the Rapper. Oh my
help
goodness.
for the past year because I had 2 mental hospital stays where I was put on a 5150. So like,
dude, mental hospitals absolutely suck. I've been to one. I've been inside one. It's absolutely terrible.
I go into these like
Fugues, these states.
Yeah, like it's like a blackout where I'm like not that person.
Yes.
And like that was the first time that happened. So now that that's out there on the internet, like everyone thinks that's just me, that I just like abuse people. And it's like, it's never been that far.
It's difficult when dealing with Trisha because you don't want to risk triggering an episode. But at the same time, you also want to be careful when dealing with someone whose narratives can be somewhat unreliable. You could be providing life-changing advice, but it wouldn't matter if it's under false pretenses. The presentation of this is couples counseling, but by the end, it has really transformed into Trisha's counseling, with the occasional input from Klein. And maybe it makes sense given that Trisha has more issues. But when you're trying to repair that bond, there has to be some semblance that you're keeping a couple on even footing. They have to be in this together.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can see why your relationships don't work out.
I can see why you've been with the same person for 12 years.
Thank you.
You have no other options. And quite frankly, I don't blame you.
Ethan may
I'm lost for words, bro. Like what Ethan said was messed up, but it's true. And her response is, "You're only with your wife because you have no other options." What? You don't say that. Like. Oh my God, bro. She goes for the throat.
may have had problems in how he interacted with Trisha. He knew that frenemies needed conflict, but it's a fine line to walk, and it's fair to say that at points he may have crossed a few sensitive boundaries. However, it was a shared change that needed to be undertaken, and even with the understanding that Trisha was working on themselves, they still had a commitment to the podcast as well if they wanted to maintain it. Nonetheless, towards the end, we appeared to be moving in that direction, as there seemed to be heartfelt comments from both co-hosts expressing remorse for previous hostility.
I'm gonna try, whenever I say Trisha, instead of saying she, I think I said she a couple times. I'm gonna start saying they, them. I forgot they totally decided to do that.
And expressing desire to build from that.
I feel horrible. I do apologize for being so nasty, like from the pill thing, because I know how that feels, and I apologize for trying to be tough and badass and
Ethan
pill
looks,
thing, because I know how that feels, and I apologize.
Ethan looks absolutely gorgeous.
For trying to be tough and badass and talking about Hila and everything. Like, I always feel bad. Like, I feel bad about it when it's not in a joking mode. When it wasn't, when you triggered me, I felt bad.
Yeah, like what Hila do? She didn't do nothing.
When I was like, good luck trying to get your wife pregnant. Like, it was just a mean thing. I don't know what it was, and I'm sorry, and I feel bad. Like, that's not
Oh my goodness.
Not the last time.
I do know
Not the last time you'll do it.
At the end, you may have
It's not the last time you'll do it. Come on, Doc.
been given the impression that this was actually a proper reconciliation, with Klein and Peters thanking Dr. Drew, committing to another episode with him in the future, and the podcast ending on a considerably triumphant note. But it all felt a bit hollow to me. Maybe that's with the context of where we are right now, but even then it's very difficult to take anything at face value, because even becoming invested in this progression requires an assurance that we wouldn't end back in this place that caused this episode to occur, and I wouldn't think that everyone was prepared to invest themselves in that, especially given the difficulty of acquiring the truth and how Trisha even presented that in the podcast. It felt like we could end up here again.
Okay, so let's go to the resolution. What was it? Just that issue? How was that issue resolved? I don't care. The wall. Final episode. Okay, let's watch the final episode.
Episodes with instance, what we were about to witness wasn't immediately apparent.
Trisha doesn't know what gravity is.
Judging by the thumbnail. and title. This may be due to the fact that Ethan didn't want to make it seem like he was cashing in on the conflict, or perhaps because Ethan didn't view it as second to the much more prominent conversation relating to the titular subject, Gabby Hanna, a person who may have helped bring Trisha and Ethan together in the first place. Episode 39 starts like many episodes do. Unexceptionally, Trisha doesn't seem to be quite as energized as previous episodes, but it's not out of the realms of normality. Ethan is ominously dressed in an Uncle Fester costume again. Barely a few minutes in and Trisha is already dissatisfied at the affairs relating to their costumes, seemingly frustrated by the lack of control they have over its selection.
These are your ideas.
You got it off Reddit and you're like, we're gonna do this, and I'm like, this is definitely not my idea.
You told me you didn't like it?
My idea would be Maui and Moana. My idea would be Sharpay and Ryan from High School Musical.
So they want to have more creative freedom. I mean, that's understandable. 50-50, creative freedom. Even though they're on the H3 podcast, that's your co-host, man. If your co-host wants to do this costume, all right. Well, and plus, you guys don't even have to have the same costume going on. Like, you're dressed up as a Halloween character. Trista's dressed up as an orange. I don't know what this is, but, it doesn't have to be the same thing. It could just be your own thing.
I have
The whole pretense of Frenemies was Ethan and Trisha don't like each other, and they're opposites. Episode 1 was he's wearing black on a black background. They are wearing pink on a pink background. Keep it different. Why not?
I've never once picked our costumes. Never once.
What?
Never once. You can fact check into the thing. Never once.
You have never once picked our
Never
outfits?
once.
Okay, show this.
I don't want to be the girl in the movies. I want to be the boy too. Like, I want to be able to be like.
This goes on for a couple minutes before they reach some sort of resolution where Ethan commits to doing more Trisha's costume suggestions, and the next half an hour passes without major incident, though Trisha does make a few comments towards Ethan about the procedure of the podcast.
So,
Congrats.
Thanks.
Okay, let's talk about Teddy Fresh for 2 hours. I'm just kidding.
we talk about it for about 2 hours every time you mention it. It's like every episode.
I'm just kidding. Congratulations.
Have one comment in particular that should have set up some red flags was this one.
Actually, I'm really hateful today, so I need to rein in the positivity because I have a lot of hate in my heart right now, and I need to let it go.
For Gabby?
I think just in general, I've been feeling really negative. Like when those people were around my car, I just was feeling negative. I felt negativity.
I got you. You're like, give me some space, you little fucking pieces of shit.
Here, Trisha is setting a mark.
Jeez.
They are not in a good mood. They have a lot of hate in their hearts. And to that point, Ethan tries to ease any tension by jovially reassuring Trisha, though they don't seem particularly heartened by his attempts. There's a skit shortly after which seems to cut through any agitation in the moment, but the topic of Gabby Hanna, someone who Trisha has only stated they do not really like to discuss.
Biggest piece of on the internet. At Keemstar, Gabby suffers from mental illness. What's your excuse, Keem?
Typically, given they believe Gabby is stalking them, is
if Gabby Hanna murders me, blame Keemstar for enabling it. I'm not kidding. The way he was egging on an actual psychopath is insane. She just told him, it's not like I want to see her burn or hurt. Bitch, who even thinks that? What?
a bold choice. It certainly seems to play into their sense of paranoia.
Because when you feed stalker people, or obsessive people, I should say, this kind of attention, that's what they live for. This girl wants to be connected to me, and now it's giving her. She's going to be the Yolanda to my Selena. I feel it one day. It's not going to be a good thing.
How the conversation manages to tangentially end up at the ever popular topic of pizza, and they bond over that. It seems the mood has been restored, and all is well once more. But then,
if Trisha is upset, give Trisha pizza.
And we cut to the ad segment, and we notice an empty chair alongside our festery friend. He explains the situation, and he doesn't seem too distraught about it, describing the incident as a little blowout, and proceeding with the routine ad reads. However, regardless of the scale of this clash, it was obviously a departure from the conflict-free record, and many were left anticipating the inevitable and what exactly would spawn it. While the topic of Gabby Hanna continues, and while they both seem to have some sort of rational grasp on the topic, they do venture through some subjects that Trisha clearly finds triggering, particularly regarding an interview which they felt wasn't completely in good faith. Trisha seems to take this quite triggering, particularly regarding an interview.
Gabby Hanna makes a Trisha Paytas diss track. That's so corny.
Which they felt wasn't completely in good faith. Trisha seems to take this quite seriously, but also quite soberly, and Ethan provides his standard support, though they do seem to dwell on points that may be considered a little morbid for someone of Trisha's paranoid disposition. Perhaps not the best choice.
We can't. After this, no steamy nomination for her either. We cannot mention her ever
Most
again.
likely to assassinate Trisha Paytas.
Stop!
And the winner is, and then we invite her up and we give her a knife as a reward.
Bro, what are you doing? Trisha's Dude, Trisha's scared. Why would you do
Word.
that?
Stop. That's why I bring security. I have security guards that come with me
scared,
everywhere.
Trisha's rich as hell. I'm surprised if she didn't have security follow her everywhere. She lives in a freaking mansion that I saw her get busted down on an OnlyFans video. I'm not gonna link it, man. That video is so old. I saw that a long time ago. With Adam 22, Linda the Plug, and Trisha, they was doing the thing, and they had a pizza outfit. Wow.
I'm not kidding.
I
She
just
will
hope-
show up.
Yeah. Most likely to kill Trisha with this knife.
So scary.
With all that said, there is the idea that Trisha being able to vent may have been able to lift that weight off their shoulders, and they seem to express this sentiment of greater stability as well, since cutting certain toxic people out of their life.
Even my aura, my stability in my mind, like the fact that I can handle triggers and like
Good auras.
do you know what I mean? Yeah, and I've gone to therapy. I've been going to therapy since 2019, so you could say therapy, but at the same time, I'm like, I really think since like I really left that, like everything's been like so much better.
That's
just
very
like
interesting.
yeah, everything like health, like money, like everything just like flows. Friendships.
But then, not too soon after the pizzas arrived, there was signs of discontent.
No, I got black olives, pineapple.
You know where they messed up at? They got Domino's. Domino's is ass. Papa John's all the way. Better ingredients, better pizza, better bitches, better money. I work harder, I look better. You know, y'all know what I mean.
And jalapeno, and it's insane. So good.
Wait, no, not my discontent, Trisha's discontent, though we are going to have words about those pineapples, Ethan. No, the
Y'all eat pineapple on pizza? Let me know.
real problem arises when Trisha begins to talk about Brokeback Mountain, a romantic drama about two cowboys who become romantically intertwined in a rather unaccepting environment. Trisha was
Make it
clearly very
cowboys.
invested in the plotline and also the narratives that were still relevant to this day in their mind. Ethan, however, becomes a little distracted by the pizza and the awkwardness radiates through the screen.
There's still people are still like that. Like trans people are getting beat in their face to death.
Oh, I'm
like
so over that shit.
and so like watching it, I was just like, holy shit. And like Heath Ledger, Jake Gyllenhaal said Heath Ledger refused to make like gay jokes about it,
You
like
like
during the
them?
Oscars, and I don't know.
Is there a third pizza?
You're so not good about this.
When you're trying to tell your friends a story and they do not care.
Okay, let's go
I
through
just
your
wanna make
stupid.
sure that everyone
I don't
got
like this
pizza.
segment. Just for the record, fan advice is a stupid segment.
It's a little rude on Ethan's part given the subject, but it's nothing that needs to escalate. However, Trisha, clearly feeling wronged, decides to go in.
I never pick the
Oh, you see what I'm saying? She going for the throat.
costumes. I never do the vlogs. I give so many ideas. I say dancing for the vlogs. I give all these ideas, and you don't. It's just
What's wrong with
people that work
advice?
for you? I don't think it's a good segment.
The people want to hear from us.
Okay, do it. I'm
Okay.
telling you my opinion, and all the vlogs we've done, I've adjusted other vlogs, and like that never does. I
Well, if
adjust
you don't
other
like it,
things.
then we shouldn't do it.
Okay.
Since this is a show about me and you.
No, but you're saying I do all the work, but I'm telling you I don't like all the stuff you do. I'm just kind of go with it because I'm like, okay, I guess this is what you want to do, but I have to start saying no because some things are just not good ideas.
Although
Well, honey, if you don't like it, do not agree to it. If Ethan says, "Oh, we should do this," if you don't like it, speak up. Don't just be like, "Yeah, okay." That's how you get walked all over. I mean, do you expect Ethan to really care? If you don't say no, he's not gonna care.
feels like a rather dramatic change in tone.
And that's for everybody too. Like if you at work, you got a boss talking down to you. If you don't like it, man, talk back to him. You don't got to be disrespectful. You don't got to cuss him out, nothing like that. Just be like, hey, don't talk to me like that. You know, just stand up for yourselves, man. Everybody stand up for yourselves. Shoot.
You can tell that these are frustrations that have been boiling up, particularly given their prior mentions. Although Ethan feels like he does the heavy lifting, Trisha clearly doesn't feel like they've been given the chance to, and is quite blunt about it. They also don't think the material for the podcast is original enough.
But you're asking like, we do all the work. It's like we spent one Frenemies rehashing all the stuff you said about Keemstar and H3 Live, which was 2 days prior.
Okay, it
It's
happened
like,
one time.
No, it's happened before where you just like bring up stuff that you've already mentioned and it's fine.
Why are
But
you attacking me?
you asked me, you said tell me, and I'm telling you, like just because you guys come up
said
with
what?
everything doesn't mean it's good. It's recycled a lot of it. So it's like I can come up with
Not
new
a lot of
ideas.
it.
A lot of it.
No.
Mm-hmm.
If you have ideas, I'm all ears.
I watch H3 Live and we talk about the same thing, and I'm happy to talk about it.
It's not always like that. It's happened before. I agree.
It happened last time. It's happened a lot.
Sometimes I forget what I've talked about, honestly.
But you're saying you have all this crew that does all this work for you, and nobody could remember that you talked about that 2 days prior?
I agree. Somebody should have said something.
Hey, man, what y'all doing, man? Trisha out here pointing out all the flaws. That should not, especially publicly. Hey, y'all need to tighten up. Trisha said, y'all need to tighten up.
God, I was like, guys, why don't you tell me when I'm talking about the same shit over and over? Because I tell to them, I go, yo, make sure to include this. And they go, oh, okay. But I go, oh, shit, I talked about the same thing.
Ethan defends himself on this front, though conceding on one point, while asking Trisha to be a bit more honest with their emotions, something which then prolongs this tension, eventually leading into the dreaded discussion surrounding revenue split, which once again comes back to the notion of control.
But I feel like you're so angry about this.
I'm literally not, but it's just so funny.
Are.
I'm not. I'm angry when you say something.
You need to admit when you're angry.
Ethan, I promise you, this is really is gaslighting. I go to a lot of therapy right now, and this really is. When I say I'm not angry, I'm not. I'm like just trying to tell you that you're like, oh, we do everything for the show, and I'm like saying it's not always good. I'm not angry. If I was angry, I would like leave or something, but I'm not. But you telling me I'm angry
or something. You're not upset or angry.
Stop, Ethan. Let Trisha talk.
Okay. People we hire. Why would I ask you about people I hire?
Because it's frenemies and you take the budget for paying the crew. That's what you told me. You take highlights, you take 5% to pay the crew. So why don't I get any input on the crew or what we do?
These are employees of our
So why are you taking highlights and 5% of frenemies? You told me that it was to pay them, that they could be working.
For production costs.
Okay, but you told me
it's for
at the
production
beginning,
costs.
You told me at the beginning it's like they could be working on other things. So I made that argument too. I'm like, well, they're already H3. Oh, they could be working on other things. So I'm like, okay, in that case.
For production costs. I take 5% extra from the podcast revenue, and I take the highlights revenue, and everything else we split.
Right. So for production costs.
Yeah. And so we had to buy.
But that was the first time we ever.
Wait, he's getting all the highlight revenue? I get it. It's his channel. He's the man. He can do whatever he wants. But I'm that. And maybe it's taken out of context, or maybe he's not saying the full thing. They have a hour-long podcast. They have highlights, and they take the highlighted moments of that podcast and make separate videos. Those videos will get separate ad revenue. If Ethan is taking all of that ad revenue, that's not really fair, because if the highlight especially includes Trisha in it, they definitely deserve at least a piece of that, even if it's not 50-50 on the highlight, because that's separate. That takes more work, stuff like that. They definitely still deserve at least a piece of it. At least a piece.
Spent money on production costs.
It's not about that, dude. It's literally about we are producing the show and I'm taking a cut. I feel like that's beyond reasonable.
Yeah,
I mean,
beyond reasonable.
5%. Yeah. 5%. Do you realize how much 5% was of our last one? That should be enough. But also like highlights, and then the membership I had to fight for because you weren't, I forgot to tell you about the members. Like,
I giving you 50% of all the members.
Trisha seems rather irritated despite proclaiming that they're not.
50% of the membership. So if you guys don't know, you could sign up to be a member. And usually when you're a member, you usually get whatever benefit they want, whether it's a private live stream or emotes, private emotes, whatever. He's giving her 50. He's giving Trisha 50% of that is actually really good. Honestly, really, really good. There's a lot of stuff that goes behind the membership, and for Trisha to get 50%, and I don't think Ethan would get 50%. Ethan would have to get like 40, so the other percent goes to whoever's editing the membership videos and stuff like that. That's pretty generous for Trisha to get 50%. She might be making more than Ethan off memberships alone.
And when Ethan expresses this, it only seems to worsen their mood, with Trisha believing they're being gaslit. This then causes them to express doubt regarding Ethan's intentions, and then Ethan, once again giving up, concedes that he must have gaslit her.
Because you can be upset and still show up.
But I'm not upset, and that's what gaslighting is, because you're saying I'm gaslighting you by saying...
You're not upset. You're perfectly,
you're in
a perfect condition right now.
But this was a great mistake.
Wow. Holy cow, that's great.
That was a great mistake.
Crazy. I mean, I don't know how I just don't see what you just did. That's really.
What did I do?
We have to end it now. Like, really.
What did I do?
We got to stop for real. Really. We
Okay.
need to stop. Please.
Trisha, let me just say,
The fact, Ethan, that you just did that, you're right. You're right. Nothing's wrong with you. But I go, you don't know how much therapy I go to a week. I go to 4 Zoom sessions a week.
Bro, end it. Just end it, bro. Just cut it. I get it. It's content. It's going to get views. It's going to get money. 100% not worth it at this point. Cut the cameras.
Understand,
Ethan, what you just said was, you're right, Trisha. Everything's fine. That's insane. Like, the fact that you did that to me is like insane.
All right, copyright music.
In this case, Trisha is expressing a doubt, a product of paranoid thinking. There is no doubt in my mind that Ethan was not trying to gaslight them. He just wanted clarity on how they are feeling. But Trisha continued to push that theory, and in the hopes that admitting it would make it die down, Ethan does just that. The problem is that Trisha doesn't want that. They didn't want to be right in that case because what they were expressing is something that represents their worst fears, that Ethan is just taking advantage of them and reaping the rewards, and psychologically deceiving them whenever they bring it up. In this case, their thoughts were that by framing their behavior as angry or frustrated, Ethan was trying to use their emotional response to discredit their legitimate criticism. Although in a difficult spot, Ethan should have stood his ground, explained his perception and tried to calm the situation through a rational de-escalation. But he did seem tired, and his concession, despite perhaps being a mistake, may have
just let it go. He's like, okay, yeah, whatever. And that just makes people feel worse.
Been a reflection of his own mental exhaustion of trying to upkeep a podcast that was taking its toll. With that said, given his sponsor segment, he clearly expected this to be resolved by the next episode. After all, we had seen Trisha evolve a lot as a person in their time on the podcast. Alas, this appeared to actually be the podcast final episode, as the following morning, Trisha announced that they were stepping down from Frenemies indefinitely.
I get it, I get now he's saying that H3 produces and he deserves that as a producer, but it's like, I would have loved the opportunity to pitch in half for the set to, because I really do feel like I built this show,
they want to help
with them, at 50-50. I don't think I'm the main reason, because God knows my channel and my podcast doesn't do what Frenemies does, you know what I mean? But at the same time, H3, I have it wasn't doing what it's doing now either, and I feel like I helped build that. I thought Frenemies we were building together, from the beginning was 5% goes to help the crew, and then the other goes to production costs.
And that's where they messed up. Trisha said, I thought. You need to have a contract, read exactly what it says. This percent goes to here for this reason, this percent goes to you for this reason, this percent goes to me for this reason. That way there's no issues whatsoever. Have that contract on hand so you know 100% of the facts. And then if it turns out more funds was going to Ethan, bam, you have a contract, you can sue. If it came to that, if you wanted to sue, have the contract and read that stuff. That goes for y'all too. If y'all getting into anything, read that contract.
So I thought we were building something, it was going to be a bigger, set, bigger things, bigger vlogs. But it's just if I knew I was coming in as a third H3 show, I swear, hand to God, would not have done it. And then yesterday, just, hearing that, he's the producer and he does everything, when I really tried hard to contribute, and I really tried hard to bring my own stuff every week, and I feel like I did. I feel like I had top.
Okay, so we're gonna fast forward to this. I understand Trisha's point of view. Let's hear Ethan's point of view.
As a partner, I think she's one of the funniest people I've ever known, one of the most talented people. One of the most dynamic and entertaining people I've ever known.
All right, enough ass kissing. Get to the
She
point.
can say whatever she wants, what she puts out publicly. And then, if I just sit and take it, everything's distorted. And if I say anything, then I'm the bad guy for,
Nah, that's just Twitter. That's just Twitter. You're defending yourself. Stop defending yourself. Twitter's not real.
Coming after or something, which is not my intention at all. This, just for the record, is not.
The video seems to seek to clarify certain points that were made, first being the employment one. Ethan states that they actually discussed this after the argument on episode 39, and Ethan had agreed to let Trisha bring on a producer to try and ease Trisha's discomfort with the current arrangements.
Okay.
So the day after we shot, after we had broken up, we had a conversation for the first time ever about her wanting to hire.
All right, well, she hired the producer. Next episode. Edit by a light. Oh, he's having other people edit his videos? Wow.
If you're the boss and I'm the talent and you're the producer, and you care about the well-being, right? It is not a reality show.
Part one,
where
Ethan's
people
lies.
are poking for the drama and wanting the drama. If you really don't want the drama and you don't want the hate on your employees, why put it out there? Because in my head, when I said put it all out there, I really didn't think I had at that point disrespected anybody.
I'm not going to dissect these videos the way I dissected Ethan's video, mainly because Trisha makes a lot of points they'd already made on other platforms. However, I will try to give a brief outline.
Really, I'm how did I trash the crew? People are now explaining, by you saying, a segment's bad, that it's a thing where everybody works, you're insulting everybody. It's just in my head.
Are you insulting them? Yes, but you're also giving your fair criticism. It's okay to do that. If they don't like it, they could talk to Trisha about it after the fact.
I was just talking to Ethan, whatever. And I said, dude, let's just end this right now, for real. Like, it's okay for real. It's better if I'm not a part of it. Like, to me, that's where the conversation was headed.
I think Trisha's video ultimately comes down to them wanting to step back because they fundamentally don't understand what they did wrong. And therefore, unless they can come to some personal reconciliation, they can't compromise on the belief that they didn't act out of line. They don't think they're demanding, they don't think they're unreasonable, they're not trying to force people to walk on eggshells.
But again, this kind of thing, like, I have to walk on eggshells with you, I have to keep you happy, like...
Well, what about the next episode of the podcast? That was the last episode? That's what I want to know. Okay, Divergent, so they didn't have another episode, all right.
Like an ungodly amount of merch that I have no idea how I'm going to sell.
But also, he doesn't care about money, and he's worried about how it's going to sell.
Oh, Lord, she's going down this, or they're going down this route. Oh, man.
You also get a paycheck every month. You get it from the highlights, you get it from the 5%. You told me yourself, the H3 people were on salary before Frenemies. It's just an extra day for them. You told me that, like, they're already working there. He acts like...
Wow.
Trisha's videos aren't particularly helpful. I think the problem...
So for those who don't know, YouTube pays once a month. And if the people that are working there are on salary, they're basically like working a normal 9-to-5 job. So regardless, if H3 Productions made $4 million this month, or if they made $200,000 this month, regardless, the people that are working there on set or the crew, they shouldn't really have any personal investment. It's just another job.
With this sort of content is that it focuses on a person's reaction in the moment, which when you're dealing with a dispute is obviously going to be more heated than if you were given time to see the bigger picture. However, one thing that you could at least say is that they were reactions, and therefore they should be taken with a pinch of salt, even if someone felt the drama was being played up by Trisha. They may have been overreactions, but they were reactions all the same.
Yeah.
However, Trisha clearly felt like they hadn't quite made their point. After a couple of days of what some may have hoped to be a return to regular content for them, Trisha once more uploaded another video. This time though, it wasn't a reaction or a response. In fact, its title appeared to imply something much more serious, with a trigger warning clearly expressed in the title. What is the video about itself?
I put up with Ethan purposely triggering me, trying to trigger me on multiple occasions.
Why?
I always put up with the triggers.
But why?
And I allowed myself to be triggered.
Because?
And this is not walking on eggshells. It's like, oh, I say one wrong thing. No. This is times where I'm like, don't share the private messages from episodes. And we ask him on the show not to.
Well, as it's a Trisha video, there are a fair few clashing narratives. However, the one I'd say is probably the most prominent here is that Trisha believes they were much more lenient than Ethan gave them credit for, despite the fact that they believe Ethan attempted to rile them up on multiple occasions. They believe their hand was forced by Ethan's persistent provocation, listing a few examples. A fair few of these seem to be rather insignificant,
But she doesn't, they don't say why.
But the main instance seems to resolve around a trip that Ethan, Hila, Trisha, and their family took to Disney. This was recorded and uploaded in vlog form to the H3 podcast channel, and it was pretty well received at the time. However, Trisha seems rather perturbed by a comment Ethan made during this trip about an incident they had also briefly spoken about on the podcast.
Want to talk about it. The first things that come to mind, obviously, are talking to my mom about my sexual assault on a trip from Disneyland. A trip that my mom, sister, and Moses had planned for my birthday, and
What the hell?
we did invite Ethan and Hila to come willingly, graciously, because I enjoyed spending time with them. They're,
Okay, let me at least explain myself.
No.
Let me at least explain
You're mixing business with pleasure.
myself.
Okay.
We're on the party bus, and we all got our own pizzas. I had my,
They
I
love
love the
pizza.
pineapple, black olive. Nobody else wanted it, so I started picking the cheese off. Okay, and I was just eating the toppings, and the pizza looked like a burn victim. It was all disgusting. So anyway, you looked at it, and you're like, "That is so disgusting. I can't look at it. Like that's just the grossest thing I've ever seen."
Yeah, it was really gross. I physically had to lay down after it.
And I said, Trisha, who are you to talk about gross things? You've shoved a candlestick up your ass.
Uh-huh.
But the reason I said it is because they literally know everything about this show.
Why would I?
Which means that I know that they know the meme.
It's not something they want to talk about or you want to bring up in front of your family.
Fine. But like, well.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That's messy, bro. That's messy.
They were looking at me like,
yeah, bro.
okay, maybe I fucked up.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
Alongside the other examples, it feels like Trish is having one of their revelations in rationalizing their own behavior, crafting this narrative that their reaction was actually the result of continuous comments and incidents that they failed to address themselves, and therefore let boil over in the eventual meltdown that occurred in that fateful episode. However, one really has to question what motivated them to use such a provocative title, when the topic, although somewhat sensitive, isn't exactly communicated with the same sense of pertinence to the actual subject being discussed. I'm not trying to say a trigger warning was unnecessary, or that it makes any discourse of it less valid, but in the established canon of Trisha's upload history on Frenemies, the video advertised itself as much more serious than other content that they have produced on this specific matter, despite the fact that this was once more an analysis of the often fractured dynamic between the two. However, it is a bit more accusatory given that Trisha alleges that Ethan's provocation of them was intentional.
Like, all of that was like triggers, right? When I asked to the very last episode, like, we need to stop. And he's like, yes, you can go up and leave whenever you want. You know what I mean? Like, up until even that point, he wanted me to do that thing. And I'm like, I just want to end this.
This represents this increasingly cynical perspective that each party held of each other, and in his response, Ethan followed suit. Now, given his relevance to the situation, it's no surprise that Ethan wasn't too...
I know y'all want me to talk about Trisha, but this whole thing is extremely upsetting and disturbing. I'm still processing it. This is a person I considered one of my closest friends a week ago who is now making videos accusing me of sexually harassing her. It's too much.
Flattered by how the video was publicized. However, he decided to go one step further, stating
Trisha said I was sexualizing her in the workplace, which is the textbook definition of sexual harassment. Somebody on Twitter was like, I was talking about her sexually harassing her.
That Trisha's video on the matter goes as far to accuse him of sexual harassment, specifically referring to the comments that Trisha made about his commentary on their new skin product.
Well, I mean, it might be apples to oranges, but when she was like, how big is your stuff? You know, how many people you've had sex with? I mean, apparently you guys have that type of friendship or camaraderie or something that lets you guys just talk about whatever y'all want. Like, even though me being a third party, I'm hearing you guys talk about this stuff. It's like, it's weird to me, but it should be at least on even playing field for you too, since it's already been established. But I don't know.
And then up until like the last episode, like, everyone was like, it's clear Trisha was in a bad mood, but it was a lot of things, from sexualizing my skincare product. Like, you know, I was just like that. I was like, you know, because it's not just my line.
Now, I would stop short of saying that Trish was trying to accuse him of sexual harassment, but I also don't really understand why Ethan's observation had to be construed as sexual. As they say in the episode, it's childish humor, seeing something perhaps rude in an otherwise unassuming scene.
And this is the secret. I'm so happy to finally...
Also kind of phallic.
What?
You say, Trish, what's the secret? And then you show like a foul. It looks like a cock.
What?
Balls and cock.
What are you talking about?
Look, 2 balls and a cock. It's like a giant phallus.
Oh my God. It's the products in the thing.
Bro, it's literally a penis.
You are so
Childish.
With that in mind, I can understand why Ethan feels like he's being misrepresented. However, the draw towards a discussion surrounding the semantics of sexual harassment feels a bit sudden,
Yeah,
and Trisha once more jumps on that
It's
to
a
quickly
lot.
defend themselves and say they weren't accusing anyone of such a claim, harking on Ethan's previous comments about them wanting to fire the crew to suggest that he has a bit of a habit of strawmanning Trisha's comments. At this point, Trisha and Ethan couldn't even agree on what each other were saying, but some felt like Trisha blurred the line in their comments with the intent of taking advantage of Ethan's defensive response, while critics of Ethan thought he was trying to stir up emotion against Trisha by making their claims seem stronger than they were.
Ethan incidentally invited himself to
Trisha Paytas' sister, Callie, calls out Ethan Klein in TikTok video.
our family surprise. And we paid for him. Ethan and Hila did not pay for their VIP ticket to Disneyland. We ended up paying for Ethan and Hila, which is crazy because he takes...
Speaking of Ethan and Hila, where the hell is Hila in all this situation, all the scandals? She just low-key chilling, like she's not even worried about it. She just... What does Hila do all day?
At 5%, and VIP tickets to Disneyland is not cheap. And I don't know why he felt compelled to ask me and my mom or bring it up in the situation that how we felt about her having a candlestick up her you know what. It made us very uncomfortable, especially we had just such a fun day. And it was really
He dropped
disgusting.
the ball. He dropped the ball
I think that he wanted the shock value, but I think that he forgets that we're family at the end of the day. And I was not appreciative of that.
The next few days, though, were just pure chaos. Trisha's sis decided to weigh in, supporting Trisha's statement and alleging that Ethan and Hila invited themselves to Disney and had their tickets paid for.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. A lot of this does not matter. They become enemies, and then nemesis. This truth comes out. Lies. Who's using who? 5%. Complaining about the faith that things will get better. All right, man, let's just end it right here. Frenemies, man. If you want to see all this content, man, link in the description. Go watch the original video. But I just cared about Frenemies. Okay, so now I understand why they broke up. Ethan was saying stuff that triggered Trisha. Trisha couldn't handle the smoke, so Trisha would leave. And then Trisha wants to come back because Trisha has an emotional investment in the Frenemies podcast. So Trisha wants to do more with it. And it's hard to work with Ethan because Ethan is controlling, but it's Ethan's show at the end of the day. So, maybe he just doesn't feel comfortable handing the reins to somebody else. He said this, she said that. They want to be friends and they mix business with pleasure. And like Ethan is just weird. So he says the wrong jokes at the wrong times. And yada, 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 frenemies.
Bound to present a more unfiltered, authentic version of himself. And in a way, he achieved that.
You did.
However, he also
100%.
experienced issues expressing that natural self and working it into conversations with other guests, and often getting into drama himself. Drama and conflict aside, there was definitely a need to surround himself with people who would play off his best parts and ameliorate his worst. Nowadays, he does that pretty successfully with his crew, but back then, Trisha was the catalyst to bring H3 into a new era.
Dude, Coachella versus open casket funeral.
Who would have guessed that a few select comments could spawn such a tumultuous and memorable partnership in the YouTube history books? And in many ways, they did create something timeless, an experience that many were grateful for. Given their characters at the start of the podcast, people really didn't believe it would
My man dressed as Joe Exotic.
last more than a few episodes, but over time that expectation changed and the investment manifested as well. And for much of the time, the show appeared to undergo an evolution that transformed both Ethan and Trisha, moving from a dynamic of tense rivalry to strong camaraderie. With that in mind, there was a perpetual sadness that the podcast couldn't be something greater, as it seemed to be progressing in that direction for so long.
I keep saying I love this show, and like everyone just like stop the podcast. I'm like, please don't stop this podcast. It's all I got going.
Well, let me read you what they said.
Without context, the episodes constructed a poignant story, one where Trisha had experienced so much maltreatment and desertion that their own responses were a product of their reception. In some ways, it seemed like a believable account, particularly given the cannibalistic nature of internet culture, and the conviction that Trisha spoke with made it all the more convincing. It was an occasionally difficult but very sympathetic portrait of a person who is often judged quite harshly by the internet.
Oh, 100%. But I mean, Trisha be out here saying some wild stuff. I don't forget that video where she made it's called "Do Dogs Have Brains?" What?
Additionally, it was a sobering moment for a lot of viewers and maybe prompted a fair bit of reflection on their behalf. However, often the problem with the internet is that it's a pendulum. It judges an individual either far too harshly or not at all. And in the deluge of sentimentality, some left their better judgment at the door. So many were sold on it. And maybe if some had detached themselves a little more.
I'm just going to read the one with the most likes, 5.3K. Ethan going from shaming Trisha for face tuning on. You can't fucking spell. Nicole, go back to school. For anybody that hasn't watched Trisha for years, she literally used to film her birthdays every year, and it would be her alone buying herself gifts, or like she said, with her mom. She is nobody that understands her. So seeing this and how happy she is, so happy she with so many people that love her and things going in her family almost makes me tear up, legit.
They would have picked up on certain lies designed
Love seeing your friendship evolve.
To play up this story. I don't think this means that Trisha hasn't suffered in their life. I want to make that clear. But I do think they were too committed to it. Too committed to a vision in their head that wasn't going to happen.
100%. She was dreaming of the perfect podcast. Every day she goes into work, she's going to love it. She loves her guest. Her guest is going to treat her right 100%. Nothing's wrong. Yeah.
Trisha is a person whose words have often held very little impact online because of how notably unreliable and melodramatic they are. But Frenemies changed the game for them due to the assumed realism of that podcast environment. Unfortunately, although it was a new format, it was the same old Trish. And given they've proven to have lied a fair few times prior, including during their debut appearance on the H3 podcast, it was almost impressive they managed to rope people in once more. I think in this story, Ethan saw himself in a position where he could be the start of a healthier online relationship for Trisha. He really did try to make that difference in their life, but they weren't quite ready to let Ethan in. And I think Ethan picked up on that because Trisha knew that the podcast wasn't quite where they wanted it to be. Trisha had greater plans for this story and Ethan didn't. I think deep down they both apprehended its collapse, either due to Trisha's own nature or Ethan's response to it. And in a way, Ethan's subsequent reaction to Trisha's lashing out helped preserve the abandonment narrative in their mind.
I think every single person, every group I've been with, Shane Dawson, David Dobrik, Ethan and his crew, like they're all these guys that are like, oh my God, you're just so crazy. Like, what the fuck? She says this crazy stuff, her crazy life, like candlesticks up her ass, all this stuff. And then as soon as like I get triggered by it, it's like, oh, too much. Oh, like she's just a bad person. She's just like mental. It's like all of a sudden it's like, you know, it's like if it's too much, they're like disengage. It's weird. I don't know.
Right. So Trisha's saying, you knew what you were signing up for, but you couldn't handle it when it actually happened to you.
Yeah.
Then they abandoned you.
Right. So
exactly.
Yeah.
The difference is at that stage, it was Trisha who left the podcast. It wasn't Ethan's fault. The one thing that I would say Ethan was unequivocally right to do, though, was to accept the end of the podcast. I have my problems with Ethan's reaction and response. I think I've made that clear. And I don't know the exact reasons behind his decision, but he couldn't have maintained it in good faith with the then present arrangement.
Sometimes you just gotta let it go.
It was the best thing to do, not just for him, but for Trisha as well and everyone around them. And honestly could have helped preserve a good friendship. To do so much in public on one hand can be raw and powerful. On the other hand, it blurs the line between persona and person, and Trisha is so bad with that. I know I've probably said that before, but it doesn't become any less true. And as the personal relationships become more and more intertwined, it was clear that these moments of conflict were only going to cause more harm to Trisha, Ethan, crew, friends, and family. At the start, I noted that a podcast sometimes could only run as long as there is a motivation. But in the case of Frenemies, the motivation to start the podcast was ultimately the motivation taken to end it, because what initially benefited them became a detriment as they grew closer, that friendship. Unfortunately, that friendship couldn't be saved because of what followed. Trisha's failure to distinguish between that public and private aspect of Frenemies, and Ethan being pushed past breaking point when reflecting on it. If you had a time machine, you could probably change a few things and maybe it would have kept the podcast alive a little longer.
For a little longer, exactly, but eventually...
Maybe it would have imploded even sooner. Who knows? I think the one element that may have been worth saving was the friendship itself, removing that betrayal and reflecting on the intent of the parties on that podcast. And with the family involved, maybe it would have been a more peaceful conclusion for all.
It's just the mixing of business and pleasure. Like, I honestly think Trisha and Ethan could be low-key friends, like offline. They could be friends right now, just publicly they don't acknowledge it. And that'd be 100% fine.
Then we had one which dragged in other parties, over-invested fans to an extreme degree, and always ended up exhausting everyone actually involved because they couldn't say anything final. As much as it's entertaining for audience members and possibly cathartic for yourself to go mask off in a stream, a stalemate is never satisfying, and when you pit yourself against each other in such a way, that's all you're ever going to end up with. As we've seen, if you wrong Ethan, he's often not afraid to hold back. That's for better and for worse with him, particularly when he wants to rip into someone the way he would occasionally advise against.
We're pretty PC in general, too. Like, it's a comedy podcast, but I feel like we are pretty respectful at the same time. So I don't know. I think some of y'all are just too sensitive. Like,
not a politician.
Yeah, exactly. And thank God for that. Thank you, AP, by the way, for defending me. I feel like, you know, if you're watching this show and you're perpetually offended by things I'm saying, you may want to just stop watching, like, genuinely. 100%. And I'm trying my best to learn when I can. And
I totally understand where Ethan's coming from. It's just hard part is, bro, you're a public figure, so it's not even the same thing, you know. Saying just don't watch the show, I mean, that makes it hard when you get millions of views a month. So maybe there's a clip and you say, oh man, I freaking hate everybody that eats pineapple on pizza. And somebody that doesn't like your podcast and loves pineapple on pizza, they're minding their own business and they're on Twitter. And then they see this clip. I hate everyone that has pineapple on pizza. So, you know, you're a public figure. Your face is going to go everywhere. It's not going to just stay on YouTube. And I'm sure he's aware of that, but it's like totally 100% frustrating.
I did take and learn what I could from Matt, and I listened respectfully. But to say it's gross and disappointing, which is a comment I'm reading specifically, is just, I think you're too sensitive for the show. I really do. I'm sorry.
Ethan is a regularly cynical guy who tries to be socially conscious but often fails, and will draw criticism for supposed pandering and double standards due to it. Trisha and their loyal fans clearly possess this impression that Ethan still only cared about the podcast for its content and not for them. And maybe at the start, when some people raised that concern, it was a valid point. But over time, I do think Ethan's intentions evolved, which I think is what made him so bitter at the end. I think he did care, and I think he was
100%.
embarrassed at himself for caring.
Dude, there's no way he didn't care about Trisha, because they broke up and then they got back together. There's no way the content, like the money was that good for the content to just go through that psychological or emotional pain unless you had some other investment besides monetary. There's no way Ethan didn't care at least a little bit about Trisha. No way on earth. I'm not believing that. No shot, not at all.
You see me as a troll and a trickster, and nothing's true.
Right.
You see me as that way because you see through your own lens. You yourself are only seeing your own kind of shadow being cast on the world.
That's not true. I don't.
Trisha has a problem with the public sphere. As acknowledged early on, there's evidently an issue with the fact that they don't value the consequences their words can hold and the implications they may have in a socially sensitive environment. Even if the comments didn't directly affect the people that were being referred to, there were others in those circles and even on the podcast that did feel that impact. Whether Trisha cared too much about themselves or not enough about others is judgment I'll leave down to you. But whatever the reason, it ultimately wasn't one made for a podcast or the podcast. I know some will probably be disappointed that I didn't comment on Trisha's personal life more, particularly their contentious marriage to Moses. But simply put, I don't know enough about it. All I'll say is that I think Trisha needs people around them who don't condone their behavior just because it's Trisha. Give Trisha a reason to be better. Trisha can get better. It's just a shame that wasn't the result of the podcast. It was a project that yielded so much for Ethan and Trisha, but also left the feeling that there could have been so much more. And it had long overreaching personal implications, leaving some questioning whether it was ever worth it. For what it is worth.
And at the end of the day, man, it was just a podcast. It was just content. Trisha is still human at the end of the day. So her marriage, hopefully the person she's married to is actually like, hey, honey, you're doing too much. You're going too far. Relax, I'm here for you, actually treating her right and keeping her in a more stable state of mind. Hopefully, because we lost the podcast, but hey, at least Trisha's still alive.
Worth though, one thing I've learned from reading too many comments was that even if it wasn't quite what it appeared to be, Frenemies was still a moment of divine escapism for many. Those who came home on a Monday night, tired and daunted by the week ahead, had something to look forward to. Two of YouTube's most recognizable and polarizing figures, providing their informed and occasionally uninformed takes on YouTube drama. Frenemies was chaotic, problematic, and deeply flawed, but it was also a compelling story that many followed closely and wanted that fairy tale ending from. Sometimes fiction is more fanciful than reality, and this was one of those times. Yet, even if its legacy has been tainted, in many people's hearts, Trisha and Ethan will always be frenemies.
Great video, man. The right opinion, great video. And like I said, man, I think I probably only watched like an hour and 30 minutes of this. 100%, you guys should go and just watch the entire thing, man. Watch it in multiple chunks if you got to. But that's just my opinion about everything. I'm gonna wrap it up so you guys get and understand my point of view of what happened. So Trisha, Ethan, they don't like each other at first. They talk a lot of crap about each other online. They meet up and they're like, you know what? Let's make a podcast. Why not? It's so much chaos. We'll make a lot of money, get a lot of views. Maybe that was the original intention, make some money. Go in, do the podcast. Eventually they start having a bond with each other. But then Ethan says something wrong or Trisha takes something that's lighthearted and blows it up. And then it just goes spiral out of crazy. But they keep coming back to each other, like a crazy relationship. They just keep coming back to each other. Overall, eventually, good things come to an end. And hopefully they're doing great together. I'm really not going to do a whole full wrap up of this entire freaking video, man. But that's just my opinion. Trisha and Ethan, they want to do, they went in monetarily, my opinion. They went in monetarily. Eventually they started liking each other. and then bad stuff happens, and somebody cares too much, somebody cares too little, miscommunication. And a lot of it was aired out to the public. So now you got the fans commenting stuff, not knowing the full story, and then just saying wild stuff. You might read a comment and it's like, oh, oh, you gonna let Trisha talk to you like that on the podcast? Wouldn't happen to me, man. You're a bitch. And then they see that and they're like, I ain't no bitch, man. I ain't gonna let her talk to me like that. Whatever. I don't know. But it was a great video, man, by the right opinion. There's a lot I could talk about on this. I just don't want to, and I'm actually hungry and I'm ready to go eat. But it was a great video, man. If you guys enjoyed my reaction, if you're fine with me skipping through the video or not, whatever, comment, rate, subscribe anyway. I don't care. I care about the people that subscribe, though, man. Shout out to you new subscribers. You guys are holding it down, commenting and all that good stuff, liking the videos. I do appreciate y'all. But until next time, I will see you guys when I see you guys. Mr. R signing out.